Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody, particularly all the guests, respected panelists, and the management of this symposium. First of all, I would like to thank the Faculty of Management Sciences, University of Lahore, and all organizing committee for conducting this international symposium for the cities of tomorrow. The topic of my today's presentation is Reframing Urbanization in Pakistan, a multi-layered, a multi-dimensional framework for sustainable urban future. First of all, it is important why we need to reframe the urbanization in Pakistan. The question arises, what is the current urbanization level in Pakistan? You must have heard different opinion and different numbers. For example, officially it is said 37% urban population in Pakistan, and you must have seen somewhere that the urbanization level ranges between 50 to 55% based on some satellite imageries and GIS technologies. And there is most recent evidence is by the World Bank working paper recently published, which claims the urbanization rate is above 80%. They use the degree of urbanization approach using satellite imagery. And another approach known as structural transformation or the economic approach says that in Pakistan, urbanization is around 60%. So the question is that who is right here? Nobody is wrong. Actually, all are right in their own context because all are seeing urbanization from a different lens or the different perspective. There are multiple perspectives and the dimensions of urbanization, which we are going to explore the varying approaches and the definition of urbanization. And secondly, we will discuss about urbanization in Pakistan and the case for underestimation and the boundary trap. Thirdly, we will discuss a sustainable urban development framework based on the multiple approach or the multiple layers of urbanization. So moving forward, the next question is, what is the core concept of urbanization? Urbanization is not just a number, not a ratio or the percentage of population. It is a multidimensional process which involves the movement and the concentration of population into urban areas, expansion and transformation of built up land and settlement patterns. Thirdly, it includes the structural shift and transformation of economic activities from agriculture to non-farm activities. And urbanization is also the interlinkages of people and places, their commuting, their networking, and integrated labor market. So these all are the part of urbanization. And often some other changes like the changes and the development of institution, lifestyle, social relations are, you may say, a social dimension of urbanization. But for me, these are the outcome of urbanization, not the inputs. So here we identified there are the 4 layers of urbanization, 4 dimensions of urbanization, including demographic, spatial, economic, and functional. And there is another overarching dimension that is urban characteristics, which is present already inbuilt in all above mentioned layers. For example, density is the urban characteristic available, already included in demographic. Similarly, the built-up changes in built-up building quality infrastructure already included in spatial layers, and the transformation of the economy already included in the economic dimension. So all these urban characteristics are already available in all the 4 layers and dimensions of urbanization. The next, we will discuss the different approaches and the concept of urbanization. So far we have discussed the 4 approaches, and we will discuss them all in detail one by one. The first approach is the demographic approach. The demographic approach to urbanization considers urbanization as a rising share or the number of the people living in urban areas. It focuses on rural to urban migration, natural population growth, and reclassification. So, here the urbanization is measured as urban population share, urban population growth rates. But there are some challenges and the shortcoming of this approach that sometimes it underestimates. For example, here is the case of Rawalpindi. In the blue boundaries are the administrative boundary defined by the government under the Local Government 2013 and the Local Government Act 2019. But the pink spread is the spatial spread measured through the spatial imagery or the satellite imagery, which shows that the Rawalpindi administrative boundary is somewhere else where the actual city has outgrown out of the boundary. Similar cases for Multan and Faisalabad. So here, in these cases, the official or the administrative boundaries are underestimating the urbanization. But in case of Lahore, where entire district has been declared as urban, it is opposite. Here the actual urban or the spatial built up is lower than the notified boundary. So here there is the shortcoming that it can overestimate or underestimate. In most cases it underestimates the urbanization rate. So the second approach is spatial or morphological approach. Here the urbanization means expansion of the built up area, densification of the built up, and the transformation of the built up land. It focuses on urban sprawl, peri-urbanization, urban footprint, and vertical growth. It is measured through the different satellite imageries. We derive the built up area through the satellite imageries, GIS tools, and it basically calculates the land consumption and the land density. But similarly, it also has some challenges and the shortcoming. For example, it only captures the built up land, not the urban function, not studies the urban functions. And secondly, it is highly sensitive to the threshold level and the resolution, because different satellite imageries have there are different online satellite models available. For example, the GHS, the Global Human Settlement Footprint data is available. There is a land scan data set available. All of the models have their own algorithm, and they have the varying or the different calculation for the urban population. For example, here in Saudi Arabia, I am working for a small industrial city, which is very well planned city and very well built infrastructure, and all the night there is a well lit, well lighted and lighted city. So if you see this city from the satellite, all the night light and the built infrastructure, so most of both the model land scan and GHS give overestimate of urbanization, whereas the actual city population is lower because the most of the building and the infrastructure is unused and vacant. So still this model also has some shortcoming. The benefit of the GIS model is that it is more suitable for the international comparison, because each country has its own kind of definition. But for international comparison, if there is no unanimous definition available, then we can use the GIS or satellite imagery to compare the different countries. So the third model or the third approach is economic or the structural transformation approach. This approach basically says that urbanization is basically restructuring and the transformation of the economy from agriculture to non-farm activities like industries and services sector. And it focuses on the sectoral shift from agri to industry and services, productivity agglomeration economies of urbanization, etc. So the economic transformation or the economic urbanization is measured by the employment share in the non-agri sector mainly, but you can check the economic transformation through the sectoral share in GDP, productivity gap, etc. For example, in Pakistan, the employment share of agriculture is around 38%. So according to this definition, we can say that the urbanization through this approach is 62% in Pakistan. But it also has some shortcoming and challenges, like the countries where we don't have the GDP or the value-added data or even employment data at the district or the city level. Even the LFS, we can break the data to the district level, but there is a question of the whether the sample are representative at district or not, like that. And it heavily relies on economic activities. So the last approach or the layer of urbanization is functional or the system of city approach. Under this approach, urbanization means the integration of people and places into urban economic and commuting system. So here we study the integration of the cities through commuting, integrated labor markets. If the people working in the surrounding town settlement daily commute to the core of the city for work, and in the evening they go back to their hometown, they are the part of that urban center. That should be considered the urbanized, even if they are living in the small settlement, semi-rural or the semi-urban settlement or the peri-urban areas. So under this approach, we define the metropolitan broader region, like the Greater London. We can suggest a Greater Lahore region, Greater Pindi region. We can merge Pindi and Islamabad into one functional region, like that. Karachi and Hyderabad can be considered as the one functional unit urban area, like that. So this is measured through the commuting flow, travel to work area, travel time, and the functional urban region, rank size pattern of the cities. So like it also has some challenges and shortcoming, that it is very data intensive. We don't have a data on the commuting flows, travel to work areas, travel time, distances, like that. So another issue is the complex boundaries. For example, here is the map that the Lahore, if we draw a map of Lahore basis on the system of city framework, the system of city for Lahore overlaps the Gujranwala, and Gujranwala system of city or the functional boundary overlaps to the Lahore's boundary. And another issue, for example, in case of Pakistan, I want to quote on the right side, I'm showing here that is the economic regions of Punjab. Here for the initial work on the basis of some available information, night light intensity, clustering of cities around the GT road and their connectivity, and analyzing their flow among the different districts, we propose that the Lahore can be divided into the 4 economic regions. But when we go into the field and conducted the focus group discussion, for example, I want to quote the example of Sahiwal division. Then we suggested them that we are considering to add the Sahiwal into Lahore region, and what is their opinion, whether they want what they suggest, whether it is a part of Lahore more economically or linked to the Faisalabad. There were diverse opinion. The people were separated into the 3 sections. One were like the Okada district were in favor that we are the part of Lahore region, but some people who were the trader and dealing mainly in textile sector, they were saying that we must be connected with the Faisalabad region. Whereas the Chicha Watni and other areas, they were historically part of the Multan division previously. They were in favor that we are much closer to the Multan, and the Sahiwal division should be the part of Multan or the southern Punjab region. So ultimately there were the political debates, and then we decided to consider the all 9 division. At that time, the only 9 division were in the Punjabs, and it was decided that each division should be treated as a region. So there were some political pressure and the politics like that, which hamper such type of the approach. So next is what the global practice, what the global institution uses for the estimation of urbanization. So as far as the global agencies are concerned, the UN don't have its own or the unique or agreed definition of urbanization. They use the country-based administrative and national boundaries. They basically use the country's own definition for each country. Similar case for the World Bank and ADB. World Bank, for their research purposes in their working paper, in their blogs, also use some spatial imagery, GIS-based analysis, and the agglomeration index. But for official purpose, for example, in the World Development Indicator, they also always report the official statistics, official reported data by the countries. Only the European Union or the European Commission has its own approach, which is a combination of morphological and the functional approach. OECD has its own approach, which is the functional urban region approach. Coming towards Pakistan, we will discuss about urbanization in Pakistan and history of the different definitions and approaches towards urbanization. Until 1972, settlements with the 5,000 plus people are having urban characteristics could be counted as urban. But 1981 onwards, only officially designated municipal areas counted as urban, which includes town committees, municipal corporation, and the metropolitan corporation. But according to an estimate, 3,691 settlements with 5,000 plus people were classified as rural in 1998 census because of this definition. And there is an estimate that over 31 million people were potentially excluded from the urban population. So the urban boundaries doesn't represent the urban reality, and the country usually stuck in the urban boundary trap, and city may go beyond that label or the boundary. Actual urbanization can be much higher than that. The census such exclude the population living just outside the official city boundaries, but that is the peri-urban areas or the catchment areas of the city. For example, in 1998 census, urban fringe population of Lahore was not counted as the part of urban Lahore, and it is estimated that around 1 million population were undercounted, creating an artificial rural inflation. So there is a need of such sustainable development framework which uses all the layers of urbanization, which considers urbanization as a multidimensional approach or a process rather than a number. So here is the work under progress on which I am still working, and this is the proposed sustainable urban development framework. The core objective is to definitely align Pakistan's planning, governance, investment systems with the real multi-layered urbanization of the country. So it basically combines statistical, spatial, economic, and the functional layers, and the proposed 4 pillars of this framework include recognize the urban reality, shape urban future form, and leverage urban economy, and lastly plan functional region. These are the 4 pillars of this model. So let's start from the first pillar. The pillar 1 is recognize the urban reality and focus on statistical and governance reform. So there is a need to reform the urban definition that includes all the 4 dimensions or the 4 layers, and there is a need to regular reclassification of cities and urban areas, repeating after every 10 years maybe, and there is a need of National Urban Observatory that collect the statistical and GIS data and helps in making evidence-based planning and decision making. And this database, this reclassification and urban observatory will help aligning the fiscal transfer that should be based on the actual population location at the lower level. And definitely the benefits include the better planning, accurate budget, and targeted infrastructure, and the prioritization of infrastructure. The next pillar is the reshaping the urban form. So to shape the urban form, we rely on the spatial and environmental management of a city or the area. So under this pillar, it is proposed a metropolitan planning authorities like the Lahore. Already LDA has a wide jurisdiction, but the same approach should be followed in Karachi, Faisalabad, Rawalpindi and Islamabad. And there is a need to manage the unregulated spatial sprawl, urban sprawl, to control the unregulated and mushrooming growth of housing societies without any approval and without proper planning. All the spatial growth should be aligned with the city's strategies, master plans, spatial plans of the cities and the regions. And there is a need to protect the agricultural land, where is the fertile agricultural land, and there is a need to introduce the concept of TOD, the transit-oriented development in the regional and the city planning. There is a need to define the green buffer zones where no construction should be allowed, buffer zones, flood zones, and we need to plan for the climate resilient infrastructure. The third pillar is to leverage the urban economy. So we shouldn't only focus on the regional plan, special plan, or the master plan. We should also consider some economic strategy at the city level, region level, economic region level, or the economic corridor level. For example, in case of our municipal corporation or the local government, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the right to plan or make an economic strategy for their own cities or the regions or urban areas. So this should be a part of urban development framework, that every municipal corporation, municipal committee should have the economic planning unit or the economic development unit. They must develop their own strategy and the policies. There is a need to include the informal market. There is a need to reorganize the home-based worker and the micro enterprise. And lastly, and the most important, there is a need to reform for the local tax collection. Every municipality has a strategy to build their own source revenue. And better idea to collect the revenue at local level is, it is proposed that there is a land value capture approach should be adopted by the municipalities to generate their own revenue for the infrastructure development. So the last pillar is the functional region and the corridor. There is a need to adopt the systems of city approach. We need to define the functional urban areas on the basis of travel time, commuting flow between the different settlements and the cities, economic linkages, integration of the labor force. So all the housing, transport, land use, water, wastewater, energy, they cannot be planned at the city or the lower level. There is a need to define the functional urban areas based on their connectivity, interlinkages, and all such plans should be the functional urban area level. For example, if we consider Karachi and Hyderabad into one functional region, so they can better plan for housing, transport, and land use, and where should be the expansion of urban area, residential area, commercial and industrial area. Similarly, we can define the corridors, economic corridors. For example, M2 on M2, M3, M5, and CPEC nodes, we can develop the economic corridors. Before concluding, I was talking about the corridor development, and I remember in urban unit, while we were working on the Punjab spatial strategies, we identified various corridors. For example, Lahore, Sheikhupura economic corridor, Lahore Gujranwala economic corridor, all the GT roads across the central and northern division and districts. There were a lot of potential for development of such economic corridor. Now concluding, I would like to say that urbanization must be understood as a multi-dimensional process. It is not just a number. Our planning must reflect spatial reality, economic concentration, and the functional linkages. So the sustainable urban development requires better definition, better data, and better governance. So here I want to thank you all for your patience listening, and I am again thankful to the University of Lahore for providing me this opportunity. Thank you very much.